Hey guys, welcome back to another audio, non-video video. There's no screen. So today I'll be talking about my experience with my current internship in the summer of 2024. So it really started in, April, May-ish. Yeah, around there. I applied for this internship. It came up on my email. I'm not going to say the place, but it seemed like a good opportunity. So I emailed the people and I was like, hey, what's the rule on guide dogs? Because a lot of the blindness training centers don't allow people to use their guide dogs because you're role modeling blindness skills and you can't use a dog. So they emailed me back and they said, yeah, we don't have any rules. Like, you're fine. You can use your dog, if you're working for us or as an intern. So I was like, cool. So time passes, I applied, I filled out this application, which took me forever because I didn't have a computer at the time. My computer was broken. And so I literally had to, use a screen reader from 2002 and try to use that and type my answers from memory. So that was awful. But I did the application. I completed it. And I was like, man, I don't know if I'm going to get this. I'm not going to get my hopes up just in case I don't. But honestly, I have nothing else to lose. So time passes. I went to job fairs. I talked to people. I found this one place that I was interviewing for the day that I found out I got the internship. So I was waiting for this interview. It was an hour away, and I got the email, and they were like, we want to welcome you to the internship at blah, blah. And I was like, oh. So then I emailed the other place I'm interviewing at. I'm like, hey, sorry, I got an internship. I can't interview you today. And she's like, that's okay. Call me afterwards. And I'm like, okay, I will. So I get this internship, and honestly, guys, it was terrifying because it's in a large city, and I could not have prepared for it, man. So I get to the airport, and I get to where I'm going, and I get out of the airport, and so this lady I met on the plane was great. She helped me get to the Uber line, and so I get this Uber, and I get this driver, and he comes up, and he's like, no dogs, and I'm like, she's a guide dog, and he's like, yeah, I don't transport dogs, and I'm like, cool, well, sorry. And he's like, oh, I guess I can take you. And I was like, well, if you don't want to, that's fine. Just let me know. But I have to report it because it's a discrimination. And he's like, it's not discrimination. I have a right to not refuse you. And I'm like, no, you don't. You don't have the right to refuse me on the grounds of my service dog. And he's like, yeah, I do. I can do whatever I want. I'm an Uber driver. And I'm like, no, you can't. So in the meantime, he's screaming at me. This is not a quiet conversation. This is full on screaming, angry. I'm trying to keep my cool, but I'm about to cry because he's yelling at me. And I'm like, I just got here. I went through the crazy airports. I had to lay over in this huge airport. And I was like, y'all are stressing me out. I just want to go to where I'm going. I don't know where I'm going. And just stop yelling at me. And so in the meantime, someone that was on my flight, the lady that helped me get to the Uber line, she, stayed with me until he finally let me get in his car, and that was the worst Uber ride ever. I'll tell you more about it in a bit. But in the meantime, she went on her plane to the next plane, and she was going to wherever, and she met someone and was telling them about the whole experience I had. And in the meantime, someone else who was in the parking lot at the time heard about what was going on, and they knew me from home, and so they were like, hey, Gretchen is stuck at the airport. What's happening? But instead of being coming over and helping me, they decided to go tell people. So they called someone who was from my hometown and told them what was happening. And they texted my sister and was like, is your sister okay? And she's like, I don't know. I haven't heard from her. Probably. So she's trying to call me while I'm in the Uber. So in the Uber, I was terrified because I'd never been to the city. And the guy was super angry. And he was saying how I need to put on the app that I have a service dog. And I said, there's no place for that. And he said, yeah, there is. It says dog. And I'm like, she's not a dog. She's a service dog. There's an Uber pet. I'm not paying extra for bringing my service dog. It's not a leave it there, make it a pet thing. I'm not paying extra. That's ridiculous. So he's like, well, I don't work for Uber directly, so I can refuse to transport you. You should be grateful I'm transporting you. And I'm like, I'm really not grateful at this point because he was driving very dangerously. It was terrifying. He was honking at people, screaming, cussing, all the things. And I was like, dear God, please make it there alive because I really don't want to die in the middle of the city. Because this Uber driver was angry because he has to transport a dog. And, I get it. He was from another country, and so he was uncomfortable with dogs, which is fine, totally fine. But instead of screaming at me about it, he could have said, hey, I'm uncomfortable with dogs. Can you put your dog, like make sure she lays down? And I would have been perfectly happy to explain how dogs ride in cars. She rides on the floorboard, in the, next to the seat. Like, she gets in and lays down, and we're good to go. But every time they stopped, because we were one of those hybrid cars that stop, and so every time we stopped, she lifted her head, and he's like, she's going to bite me. And I'm like, dude, no, she's not going to bite you. He's like, well, I've had service dogs before that I peed on my seats, and they've bit me and all this stuff. And I'm like, dude, again, you cannot judge me based on someone else's appearance and their service dog. I said, this is different. We're an actual real team. The dog that probably peed was not a true service dog. It was probably a pet. Someone said it was a service dog. I do know accidents happen, but at that point I wasn't going to argue with him and be like, sometimes service dogs pee. Like, it just happens. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do, but like sometimes, a Beacon's pooped in the Walmart before, because she had diarrhea. I didn't know it, and she just pooped, but I fixed it. We took care of it, and we left, But, like, service dogs are not perfect, but also if they're biting you, jumping on you, like, that's not okay either. So, in the meantime, my internship supervisor is calling me, and she's like, hey, are you okay? And I'm like, hi, I'll text you when we get there, because I really can't talk. I don't feel comfortable, like, not paying attention to where we're going. And so we get to the place, and the driver just, like, literally gets out of the car, takes my suitcases. Oh, yeah. Before that, he wanted to put Beacon in the trunk of the car. He's like, can I put her in the trunk? And I'm like, no, you cannot. And so he puts them on the what I thought was the sidewalk. It was the street. He parked in the middle of the street, threw my bags out on the street. And then he started yelling at me because I wouldn't come up onto the curb because I thought he was trying to, like, drag me away or something, because he grabbed my arm, like, really hard from my shoulder to my elbow and, like, started, like, dragging me forward. And I'm like, what are we doing? And he's like, the curb. And I'm like, we're on the curb. And he's like, no, you're in the street. And I'm like, but you parked in the middle of the street. Like, what? Like, I don't understand. So I finally made it here, and, like, I was so upset. Like, I was, like, about to cry just because, like, I didn't need that. It was rough. The traveling is always stressful, and then having random guys, like, grab my arms, like, was not comfortable at all. So, we make it here, and the workplace is great. It's a blindness training center, so they had, like, they do manufacturing, they do other stuff as well, but, man, you all, like, it was great. I can't even tell you all, like, how awesome it was. So, we finally, I get to this apartment complex, and the apartment's downtown, and so it was very stressful. The first couple weeks I cried for every day, basically, because it was just a lot mentally, trying to get used to. And, yeah, as you can hear, there's sirens outside. That's the sirens that I hear every day. There's a train. There's all kinds of noise. I don't like it. Not a fan. I don't like the sounds. I don't like the people that come up to me in the middle of the street and are like, you got money? And I'm like, no. And they're like, are you sure? And I'm like, yes. They're like, can I follow you? And I'm like, no. So that's kind of scary. They follow me around. They don't respect me as a person. Sometimes the buses, the people will get right up in my personal space, and I'm like, can you not? Like, this is, my PTSD was very triggered, okay? So I get here and everything. I get the workplace. The workplace is awesome. There's blind people doing all the stuff. I got to work in the independent living area, so like the rehabilitation side. And time passes, I got to work with the students, the youth students. They came for a summer program, and that was awesome. I got to do job coaching, and I went to a place with one that was awful. They did not give him directions on what to do. It was really bad, and there were some experiences I had that were not pleasant. I didn't feel safe working my dog in some of the situations I was in. This is not the fault of the training center. This is the fault of the job coach place that I was going to, because literally the children were throwing Jenga blocks at Beacon's face. They were taunting her with food. And honestly, just being little mean children. And I was like, you guys are so rude to my Beacon dog. Like, what? So I decided not to go back after a couple days, and eventually it never worked out. They sent someone else, and kind of the same thing happened, but they didn't have a guide dog. But I felt very uncomfortable because children can be mean, you all. Like, I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, what's wrong with you guys? Like, I get if you're like 2, but you guys are like 9. Like, what makes you think in your mind, let's go and hurt this dog? Because they could have really hurt her. They were throwing blocks at her face. And I could tell she was stressed out because, like, they literally, so I was making some food, working with someone about making food, and she got up to come to me because somehow her leash got untangled from what I tied her to. And someone grabbed her and, like, drug her back. I could hear her paw pads, like, scraping the floor, and I'm like, no, you don't need to do that. Like, she'll come with you. You just gotta relax, you know? And so I was glad I didn't have to go back there. It was awful. I'm not gonna say the name, obviously, because it doesn't really matter, and if you can find it, cool. If you can't, sorry. But there are situations I'm not comfortable bringing my dog into, and that was one of them, but I didn't know till afterwards. And so, yeah, that was rough. I would say definitely, guide dog, stand up for your dog, you know, and I did. I stood up, and I was like, no, I'm done. I don't care. I know this is my job duties to be a job coach, but I don't feel comfortable in this environment. I can't crate my dog for 8 hours a day, because that would be insane to do. So no, so I will not be doing that. And they were okay with it. They understood my reasoning, for the most part. And, yeah. So, okay, I'll make a part 2. So part 2. So, I really enjoyed getting to know the students and everything. We had, like, seminars where we talked about, like, blindness things, and the blind Barbie came out, so we talked about that. And, also, so, about 3 weeks ago, I got COVID. Again, that was like my 5th or 6th time. I lost count at this point, honestly. And I noticed that this time I got new symptoms. I was struggling. My stomach hurt really bad, and I thought it was because I had a lot of dairy, and I was like, I didn't have dairy. What's happening? So this time I have it again, like less than a month later, and it's runny nose. As you can hear, my voice sounds awful. Just really tired and shortness of breath. So if you hear me like breathing weirdly, that's what's happening. I can't breathe greatly. So yeah. But in the meantime, I went to the beach. It was awesome, you all. Like, I was so excited. So somebody watched speaking for me because I didn't know what a beach was. I mean, I knew what it was, but not really. So first we went kayaking. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. We were 2 hours early for kayaking. So we went to this restaurant to eat dinner or lunch or breakfast, whatever. Excuse me. And it was really good. And on the way back to the kayaking place, I lost the group. They moved so quickly, and I was like, hello? And a lot of them could see, so they were using their sight. Like, the training center uses eye shades, but, like, the people we were with did not have to wear them, so they were just like, bye, and I'm like, hello? Like, I'm still back here. Where'd y'all go, you know? So I got lost, so I had to ask some random tourist. I was like, hey, man, do you know where the beach is and where this is? And he's like, no, and I'm like, oh, crap. And I was calling them, but they weren't answering their phones, and I was like, oh. So we finally make it to the kayaking place, and the people were kind of uncomfortable with blind people as a whole, but they did great. I mean, I can't even tell you all. Like, I wish I could remember the name, but it's in Delaware. It's I think it's like Del Mar Kayaking Adventures or something like that. Anyway, y'all should go. It's great. They were willing to, like, listen to what we needed, and I got so lucky because they ran out of tandem kayaks, so I got to go my own, and you all, it was amazing. I felt so free because I was just, like, going, and, like, everyone else was, like, falling out of their kayaks, and they were fine. They weren't going to die, but I was like, bye, and I heard the seagulls above me, and I was like, man, is this what, like, beauty sounds like? Like, if beauty had a color, I mean, not a color, if beauty had a sound, it would sound like this. Like, it was very quiet, very peaceful. The birds were chirping. The seagulls were going over. There was no other sound besides, like, the water slowly. It was like a little bit of waves. We were in something called a lagoon, which I guess is not like the ocean. It is, but not really. So I'm just going my own way. I end up crossing over under this bridge, and I end up going under this dock and all kinds of stuff. And I guess no one was watching very clearly because they looked up and they were like blowing the whistle, and I was like, oh, it's a blowing whistle at me. So I stopped, and they were like, come back. And I was like, for what? And they were like, you're up by the pier. And I was like, okay. And they were like, you're not supposed to be that far. I'm like, oh, okay. So, but it was great. I went kayaking by myself, and I was like, yeah, go me. It was hard, though, because the ocean is strong. The waves, like, they were not that strong, but it's a lot harder than paddling on nice, quiet water. And honestly, the best thing that happened was we got to this part where we could swim. So, as you all know, my whole assault story that I told you on YouTube, I was terrified. I haven't been swimming for, I think it was roughly 3 years. So it was like 1,125 days or something like that. Maybe it's 1,200. It was exactly a year and 1 month and, yeah, a year and 1 month since 3 years and 1 month since I'd gone swimming in 2021. So I was a little bit nervous. I was trying to find a suitable bathing suit. The bathing suit I have is not, I don't feel comfortable in that. I feel very vulnerable. So I found some shorts and a shirt, and I was like, this is going to work, and it did. And I was about to cry. Luckily, it was salt water, so I could just be like, yeah, I'm crying. Like, I'm not crying. There's just salt water in my eyes, you know? But, guys, like, I can't even tell you. I felt so free. I haven't been swimming in 3 years. I have been so afraid and terrified of swimming around other people. And I was able to do it. And, like, it was great. I can't even, I really wanted to, like, get some water in a jar and be like, I swam in this. Like, I did it. That's been a big fear for me, is, like, swimming in public and swimming in general and wearing uncomfortable clothing to go swimming. And I was like, you know what? I did it. Like, yay. So then, me being me, I dug in the sand and I found this little circle thing, and I picked it up and I was like, cool, can I keep this? It's a shell. And they were like, no. And I'm like, why not? Like, I can probably get through TSA because I had to fly here, you know. And they were like, no, you can't get that through TSA. And I'm like, why not? And they're like, it's alive. And I'm like, what? It was a clam. There was a little clam in that shell. And I didn't know it was alive because it was closed. Apparently they can open their shells to breathe and stuff. And I didn't know that. So I was like, darn it, I want to keep him. He's so cute and so small. And I'm just like, I never had a clam in my life, so I want to hold him. But I had to throw him back because, you know, he was living in the sand, and I was like digging him out of his home basically with my feet. So, but yeah, that was probably the best thing ever, is swimming. So we go on the bus, we go to the beach, and I went with some other people, and we were going, and they were dying because we got to the beach, and I was like, guys, why is the ground moving? Like, the sand is moving. Why is it doing that? And they were like, it's tide. It's the tide. And I'm like, well, but the ground is moving. Like, what is happening? So, so they were laughing because I was like, everything's going away and everything's moving, and like, what? So we decided to go back to the boardwalk, and in the meantime, so the waves were really strong. I didn't know how strong they would be. And it was an emotional time, honestly, because my best friend, Anna, I can say her name, she it was one of our things. We were going to go to the beach together. Stop it. Sorry. We were going to go to the beach together, and we never did, because she died. So this is my first time going to the beach, and it was not great. I don't like the beach. I like the quietness, but I don't like the waves. It's really strong. It kind of freaks me out, to be honest. But I did it, you know. I went to the beach, I swam, like, all these things, and I was like, go self, you know. We got it. So, long story short, so we're trying to go back to the boardwalk, which, before that, when I got to the place, I was trying to find the boardwalk, and I found, like a sidewalk, like a pavement, and I was like, ooh, this is the boardwalk, and they were like, no, it's not. I was like, well, how will I know? And they're like, well, you'll know. And so we keep walking, and I'm like, oh, we're on the boardwalk now, because they have this place. They have this dairy-free ice cream. It's called the Ice Cream Shop, I believe. You should go there. If y'all are in Delaware, go to this place. And so we get to the. Well, so I keep walking, and I'm like, I feel these boards, and I'm like, oh, so when they say boardwalk, they mean like actual boards, like on the ground that you walk on. And they were like, yeah. And I was like, oh, I've never been on a boardwalk like this, ever. And if I have, I didn't think it was called a boardwalk. I thought it was called just like a sidewalk, like a sidewalk that is on the beach or something. So I finally get there. We get some dairy-free ice cream, and so in the meantime, like, we're trying to come back from the beach, and the other people, they could see a little bit, so like they were going straight, and I was like, feel like a drunk person because I was like wobbling around trying to find. I didn't have my cane or anything because the water can take canes, which I believe it now because the water took my shells. Like, I had a really good collection of shells, and the water was like, nope, and swept them all away. I didn't find anything. I was hoping I could find something. So we get back to we're trying to make our way back to the boardwalk, and I'm like tripping over all the chairs and the small children because they don't move, and I'm like, excuse me, I'm blind, like, I'm going to run into you. And we couldn't find our person that watched our stuff. So we're like asking these people for help, and they're helping us, and they were like, we don't know where they are, so we'll take care of it. So they go and call the cops. So the cops come, and they're very aggressive. I'm not a fan of people with authority that think they know everything. And I understand they were doing their job, but they were very condescending, and I did not like that. I did not approve of that at all. So they start asking us what we're looking for, and we kind of explain, we're like, get us to the boardwalk, get us next to blah blah shop, we can find them from there. And they're like, well, your guide left you, and we're like, no, they're not our guide, they're just someone that was watching our stuff. And they're like, what does it look like? And we're like, we don't know, we're blind. Like, they have bald hair. That was it. And they were like, so they go on the radio, and they're like, we have 3 deaf people, and their guide left them. And I'm like, we're not deaf, we're blind. Also, we don't have a guide. And they were like, you're here on the beach by yourselves, like, unsupervised? And we're like, we're not children. Like, yeah, we're fine. Like, we had one person in our group that was, like, 17, but the rest of us were adults. And so then they want to know our names, our ages, our addresses, birthdays, all this stuff. And I was like, well, we're fine. Like, just tell us where the boardwalk is. And they're like, no, like, you need to tell us all this stuff. And I'm like, why? We don't even live in the area. And they were like, just tell us. And I'm like, okay. So we tell them. And not going to lie, I was very upset at this point because they were very condescending. And I don't, I kind of lose respect for people that are condescending because I get being uncomfortable with blindness, not knowing what to do. But you don't need to talk to us like we're children. Like, you know, we're adults. And if you have someone that maybe cognitively doesn't understand, you know, whatever you're saying, you need to, like, you know, simplify it a bit or explain it a different way. Don't treat people like children. Like, we're not. We're adults. Even if we have the body type like children, or maybe, like, you think that we speak like children, which I don't think people do. I think it's just sort of the way people speak, you know, in general. Don't treat us like children. Like, if we're adults, treat us like adults. So I was getting upset because they were just very rude and very, very strong men, and they were taller than me, obviously. So we get to the so I'm trying to get them to get us to the boardwalk, and I'm like, I know we're with a group of like 60 people, like, we're all on the beach, but no, like, people know who we are. If you go up and say, hey, Gretchen is with blah blah, like, they'll tell you. I said, if you literally see any blind people, like, go ask them, because we're with a blindness group. So in the meantime, I was like, you all can leave us alone. You're like, we got it. You know, I didn't say it like that. I said it more politely. And they were like, I was like, this is not a matter of life and death. And they were like, yes, it is. And I'm like, no, it's, like, we're not dying in the water. Like, we're fine. So they decided to guide us to the boardwalk. And by guiding, I mean literally coming up behind me and shoving me forward. So I pulled away from them and probably had this weird look on my face because that was a very PTSD triggering thing. And I was just like, I don't know what I did. I didn't, like, punch anybody. I was just like, I had this terror, I guess, that was like, holy crap, this guy's pushing me, and, like, oh my gosh. And it was just, yeah. So they kept asking me if I was okay, and I was like, I'm great, like, yeah, I'm good, I'm fine, like, let's just go. So we finally get to the boardwalk, and someone from our group is like, what's happening? And we're like, these guys, you know, are the cops, and, like, they, you know, and they were like, we got it from here, we'll find the people. And they're like, are you sure? And they're like, yes. So they finally left us alone, and I was very glad, because I understand people doing their jobs. But again, you don't need to be condescending. You don't need to be telling us that we need to be supervised. We're adults, we can handle it. Also, like, if you don't understand blindness, like, don't pretend like you know more than we do and that you're better than us because you can see. That bothers me a lot. So we get to the boardwalk, we find our stuff, and it was great. But then when I came home, there was so much sand everywhere. I was like, man, how much sand is in this room? Like, goodness. So that was cool. Also amazing to me because, like, in the Bible, you know, it's like God saying, I will make your descendants as numerous as the sand by the sea. And I was like, you know, I don't even know how many sand grains are in this. Like, they're so small. But God knows how many sand particles are on the ground. Like, that's amazing. So, yeah. That's my adventure with the beach. And so my current internship, okay, I'm gonna make it part 3. So my current internship that I'm at offered me a chance to join the training program, the adult training program for the blind, and I declined it because at this time I want to go home. Like, I've been here for 11 weeks, I want to go home. I'm tired. Also, I've got COVID twice, so like my body's like really struggling. Breathing wise, I'm not 100%. I don't know if I fully recovered last time I had it, but I've got it now, and as you can hear, I am kind of struggling, like, not breathing wise, but just like shortness of breath and everything. So yeah, but you know, I might do it in the future, who knows, but I unfortunately, there's no jobs available here at the moment, so I'm going home, and I'm hoping and praying that I don't end up falling back into depression. Depression is a very serious thing, and I don't want to be back in that suicidal depression, because honestly, the one thing that surprised me the most and bothered me the most about coming here is I reached out to some mental health places because I was struggling mentally, trying to cope with being downtown and being in a big city. And I was told by the crisis lines that if I wasn't in crisis, I needed to call them later when I was. And I was like, but I'm trying to avoid crisis. Like, I don't want to get in that spiral. And they were like, well, don't call us until you are. And I'm like, So I reached out to some more places. Some of them did not respond. Some of them did, but they said, you don't live here, sorry. Or you have to have this specific diagnosis or this specific issue going on. And I even called like a PTSD / assault place, because I was like, maybe they can, because I saw on the internet they offered classes for trauma-informed yoga and trauma-informed self-defense, you know, and that's one thing I've looked into, self-defense, but I don't know mentally if I could do it, because I think that would trigger me. So I want to find one that's like trauma-informed. So, you know, if I start to freeze out or have flashbacks, like they'll understand. So I called this place. We had a good conversation, and they were like, "Yeah, as long as you're not in an abusive relationship at the moment, we can't help you." And I'm like, but like, I've dealt with, you know, assault before, and they were like, "Yeah, but it has to be a current thing." And I'm like, "What?" So that was very disappointing. I was very disappointed in the lack of mental health support. So that was a big reason why I decided not to stay, because I have to stay downtown, living in downtown, big city, and mentally it's been a lot. Working was great because the workplace is outside the city, but living downtown is not for me. I don't like it. I get so stressed because it takes so much energy to go out and do stuff, which I've done stuff. I've been placed by myself, with and without beacon. I've used straight canes. I've used different canes. I've used my GPS and figured it out. I've gotten lost before. I've gotten the wrong bus before. I've gotten off the wrong stops. I figured it out. I've survived. I found a good church to go to. I met some wonderful people. And, you know, but mentally, the city is hard. Also, the produce is awful. Don't eat the produce, because country produce is much better. Like, I went to the store and I got some corn, and I was like, ew, this corn is gross. And they were like, why? And I'm like, it's not Indiana corn. It's gross. Excuse me. Excuse me. There we go. I apologize. Yeah, so living in the city is hard. I love the opportunities that are available. I can take Uber, I can take Lyft, when they're nice, when they want to do it. With the dog, I can do all the stuff, but also, it's hard living in the city by yourself. I do have a roommate, like we're sharing an apartment, but it's still scary, So I will be returning back home in a couple days, and nervous because I don't want to fall back in that depression. But also, I made a lot of connections here. I have a lot of contact information for some companies and people I want to reach out to. So, like, I feel like if I do it right, and depression is not like, people always say it's a chemical thing. So if I can get my chemicals to align to where I'm not going through depression, I think I can manage. But I'm not going to lie, I'm nervous because I'm going from a place where I can take Uber at 2 a.m. if I choose, which I don't, but if I did, to nothing. And that makes me so sad because disability here is seen as a normal part of life. And I almost want to cry because disabled people are doing these things. They're living their lives. They're doing, like, normal stuff. And no one's judging them for it, They're just like, okay, cool, you have one leg, all right, let's go, But, like, at home, disability is seen as a curse. It's like, oh, no, did you see blah, blah? They have one leg, and, like, they were going to Walmart. Can you believe they went to Walmart with, like, all this stuff, And I know it's small town, Indiana, so, like, people think that, our city thinks that, we don't have to follow the rules of normal society, but it's been culture shock because as a blind person at home, I've always been the only blind person who's, like, doing stuff, and I don't mean that in a rude way. I just mean, like, I'm the only blind person that's been born blind, 100% blind. Like, I can see light, but that's it. So I consider 100% from birth, and I've gone to college and all this stuff, and, like, even though I've not been successful at finding a job, like, people think that because I went to college I'm amazing, or because I walked down the street I'm amazing. I'm like, no, I'm just being normal. So getting that, and then coming here and getting you're fine. Like, oh, you veered on that street. Like, okay. It's such a culture shock. It's amazing. I love it. I'm like, can I take this home? Like, can I take this attitude of, like, disability is normal. Disability is okay. Disability doesn't suck. Like, it's not like the end of the world. Like, you will find a job who accepts you as a blind person, and no one's going to be like, you suck. We're not hiring you, So it was great. And even, like, I met with my supervisor last week, and I almost cried at the meeting. I was like, yep, gonna go cry now, bye. I didn't go cry. I went to the bus, and then I cried later. But she was like, because I want to get certified as a road transcriber, because that's one of the things I want to work on, just to have one on my resume. But she's like, look, I get it, but you don't need it. You have all the skills you need. You have all the confidence. You have everything you need. You just have to find the right door, the right job, and it will happen. And I'm like, I'm going to write this down. So I literally took out my phone. I was, like, texting myself, like, writing down all the stuff. Because I'm like, what if I do find that job? And, like, how shocked am I going to be if I find it in my hometown? Or close to my hometown? Like, I will be so shocked because disability is seen as a flaw there. And I thought that that's all it would be. Everywhere I would go, I thought that's how the world saw disability. But they don't. And, like, it's fine. Like, disability is okay, and blindness is okay. And the default is not, you suck. The default is, okay, you're blind. Let's figure out how to make this work for you. And it's just, wow. Well, like, I can't even tell you. And, like, people have been really good about keeping their dogs on leashes here. No one has let their dog run free because there's leash laws. And in my hometown, they finally updated the leash law ordinances. But now, ironically, it literally says that you can let your dog run free for $5, $10. They'll return it to you, whatever. But if it attacks or injures or interferes with the work of a service dog, that dog, like, that will cost $100, whatever it would be. It was really cheap, like $100, $200, whatever. But this is like a year and 13 months later. So I called them, I emailed them, I did all kinds of stuff. I publicly put it on Facebook. That this sucks and you all suck. I didn't say that. I said it more politely, but basically I was saying that how unfair it was because 13 months later they all hadn't updated the ordinances, and, like, how unfair it was to me because once again they were showing that disability didn't matter because I was the only one that really wanted the law. So yeah, but it's really dumb. It doesn't even make sense because it's only charging for the dog that attacks or interferes with a service dog and not a dog that runs loose, regardless of if it interferes or not. Because, like, I'm blind. How am I going to know what dog it was that interfered with my service dog? Like, if the dog comes running from a street, like, how am I going to know? Oh, it was the brown one. Oh, it was the green one. I don't know if they make green dogs. If they do, cool. If not, pretend like they do. And so the only way I would know is if I wore a camera everywhere, which I did that for a bit, and then they were like, my phone would be going dead. So, but I might invest in a GoPro, but I don't know. There's just something about having everything recorded I'm not a fan of, So anyway, that's the whole story of my hometown. Going back to that, ironically, the death threats have stopped, so that was fun. They were threatening like death threats last year during all this with my hometown. So when I get home, I won't have to deal with that. But one thing I've gotten more confident with, and Beacon has done great, honestly, you guys, like, she's amazing, this dog is great, is reacting to PTSD. So I've had a lot of situations where I'm, like, losing it. Like, one day I crawled under my desk because these people were fighting on the bus, and it was super loud, and the driver kept driving, and everyone around me kept just doing their own thing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, these guys, like, they could have a gun. Like, I was having a panic attack, and it wasn't severe to the point where I stopped breathing, but it was getting there. So I got to work, I crawled under my desk and just, like, cried for, like, 10 minutes. And so she's been really good at, like, recognizing that and, like, putting her, like, signaling to me, like, hey, you need to calm down, you're anxious, Also, we've been really good about going places with dogs and her not reacting. Like, she's still a little bit reactive, she always will be, but if they don't pay attention to her, she doesn't care. I went to this food truck festival with people, and I got lost. I didn't get lost. So I tried to find a cheaper place to eat, and I found it. It was great. Totally recommend. And I don't like those things. I hate food truck festivals or anything with festival in it because it means a lot of people bringing their dogs in public, a lot of food on the ground, like all these things. Odd layout that I don't understand, and but I did it, guys. I went to this place and I left the group. I was like, I'm going to go find some fish. And I found some fish for cheaper. And I was so excited because I've never had that kind of confidence to go do it. So that's the one thing I think this internship has brought me, besides the whole blindness thing and the skills thing. Because I taught seniors how to use technology. I taught young people how to have the conversations with the job about, like, accessibility and accommodations and how to cook and, like, all these things. And I literally had the best time of my life at this internship. It was great. Mentally, I feel like I'm confident in my own abilities, and I conquered a lot of fears this summer. So there's still things I got to work on. PTSD is definitely still a thing. It still creeps up at night, especially at night. It's really hard. But I'm living, and I haven't been able to live, I feel like, in a long time. So, yeah, it's been great. So, highly recommend if you are ever thinking about interning or volunteering, whatever. Even though it's scary and you don't know what it all involves, like, go do it, I moved all the way across the country to go to this thing for 3 months, and I'm going to go back home in a couple days, and I'm worried what I'm going to come back to, but, like, I took the chance, I took the leap of faith to come here, and it wasn't awful. I had a couple experiences that were pretty bad, but I survived it, So, anyway, I hope you are doing good. Also, I got some comments on my last video, so that's exciting. I'll have to, respond to those. I apologize, I haven't been responding. And I think one of them was, what was it? I'll have to look. I think one of them was, how much can I see and stuff, and I can see light a little bit, but not a lot. So, yeah. Hopefully you are doing well, and feel free to comment or not. That's fine too. But thank you all for watching, and look forward to hearing from you in the comments.